Okay, get ready for this, because we are diving into one of the weirdest, most brilliant stories I have ever come across in the natural world. It's all about a single ant queen who is basically rewriting the rulebook on biology.
So let me just start with a question that sounds, well, impossible. Can one single mother give birth to sons of two completely different species? I mean, your gut reaction is, no way, right? That's not how genetics works.
I mean, to put it another way, this is exactly like a dog giving birth to a litter of puppies and also a few kittens. It sounds like science fiction, but researchers at the University of Montpellier found an ant queen that is doing precisely that. She's having sons of her own species and sons of another.
This whole story revolves around a species called Messor Ibericus. And the puzzle they've uncovered, wow, it doesn't just mess with our understanding of reproduction, it actually makes us ask what it even means to be an individual animal. But, okay, before we can appreciate how she's breaking all the rules, we first have to understand what the rules are. So let's do a quick crash course. Think of it as Ant Reproduction 101.
All right, first term you need to know. Diploid. It just means having two sets of chromosomes. One from mom, one from dad. In the ant world, it's simple. If an egg gets fertilized and becomes diploid, it's going to be a female, either a new queen or a worker ant.
And the flip side of that is haploid. This means there's only a single set of chromosomes and they all come from the mother, no dad involved. An unfertilized egg is haploid and it will always grow up to be a male ant, which we call a drone.
So here's the bottom line. The queen is the master controller. After she mates, she holds onto the sperm and then decides for each and every egg whether to fertilize it or not. If she fertilizes it, you get a daughter. If she doesn't, you get a son. It's simple, straightforward genetics, or so we thought.
And this is where our mystery queen, the Messor Ibericus, just throws a giant wrench into the whole system. Because when you look at who she's giving birth to, those simple rules suddenly fall apart.
Now here's where it starts to get really weird. This queen mates with males of her own species, sure, but she also mates with males from a totally different species, structor, and she just stores all that sperm together, ready to go.
So let's just break this down. Some of it makes sense. If she uses her own species' sperm to fertilize an egg, she gets new queens. That checks out. If she uses the other species' sperm, she gets sterile hybrid workers. Okay, interesting, but still follows the rules. If she lays an unfertilized egg, she gets a drone of her own species. All good. But then, you see this last line? This is the impossible part. She is somehow producing pure structor drones, sons that are 100% a different species.
And that right there is the million-dollar question. We just said that drones come from unfertilized eggs, which means they should only have the mother's DNA. So how in the world can an M. Ibericus mother have a son that has absolutely zero of her DNA and is completely 100% M. structor?
So how does she do it? Well, the answer is, it's just mind-blowing. It's not just clever, it's a kind of genetic mastery that's just astonishing. The researchers figured out her incredible secret.
She doesn't just lay an egg. She pulls off a full-blown genetic heist. It's this beautiful, ruthless biological mechanism. She lets the foreign sperm in, uses it to kickstart the process, and then just yeets her own genes out of the equation entirely.
Okay, here's exactly how this heist goes down, step by step. First, she takes one of her eggs and fertilizes it with sperm from an M. structor male. But here's the magic trick. Step 3. Right after fertilization, she somehow completely eliminates her own genetic material from the egg. Poof, it's gone. All that's left behind is the single set of chromosomes from the father's sperm, so the egg is now effectively haploid again, and it develops into a pure 100% M structure male. And get this, because she's using sperm that likely all came from the same father, every single one of these drones she produces is genetically identical. They're perfect clones of each other. She's not just giving birth to another species' sons, she's acting as a living cloning machine for them.
So now we know how she pulls this off. But that just leads to the next, even bigger question. Why? Why on earth would she go through this incredibly complicated process? Well, it turns out it's a brilliant solution to a very serious evolutionary problem.
It all comes down to a really big problem for the colony. See, the queen's own species has a genetic quirk that makes her daughters way too likely to become new queens. But a colony that's all queens and no workers, well, that colony is doomed. So her solution is to create hybrid daughters with the other species. These hybrids don't have that queen-making gene, so they become exactly what she needs, a huge, dedicated, sterile workforce to keep the colony alive and thriving.
And the researchers who figured all this out, they put it perfectly. By essentially farming the males of the other species inside her own colony, the queen guarantees she'll always have the right sperm on hand to create her workforce. It's a completely self-sustaining system of genetic manipulation.
You'd think the story ends there, right? We know the how, we know the why, but this is where things go from biologically amazing to, wait, what even is life? Because the implications of this get seriously weird.
So here's the next twist. The scientists looked at the genetics and found that these cloned, domesticated drones are now genetically separate from their wild cousins. They're on a completely different evolutionary path. It's kind of like how domesticated dogs split off from the wolf population ages ago. Which makes you wonder, right? If these drones only exist to be cloned by another ant and they're evolving separately, have they basically become a new species? A species whose entire purpose is to serve another.
But the researchers, they take it a step further. A giant leap, actually. They suggest we shouldn't even think of these drones as individual animals anymore. Instead, they propose we should see them as organelles, like a functional part of the bigger colony, which is a superorganism.
And this comparison is just wild. Think about mitochondria, the powerhouses inside our own cells. They get replicated inside the cell, and their whole job is to serve that cell. Well, these drones get replicated inside the queen's egg, and their whole job is to serve the colony. They've been so completely taken over that they're less like individual creatures and more like living, walking tools for the superorganism.
And that's the truly wild idea this little ant queen leaves us chewing on. She makes us question the very line between one organism and another. At what point does an animal stop being an individual and start being just a living, breathing part of something much, much bigger? It just goes to show you, biology is always stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine.